And now for our feature presentation.
You're listening to the JB and Goldwater Show. Live, loud, and online.
He's going to go into the end zone.
Puts it up. Yes! There goes Davis.
Oh, my God.
Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
American Pharoah, it's finally the one. American Pharoah has won the Triple Crown.
And Barnes hits right high. It's a deep. It is out of here. High fly ball into right field. She is gone.
Unbelievable. A home run for Gibson. And the Tigers have won the game 5-4. I don't believe what I just saw.
Here are your hosts, Jamie Bradford and Darren Goldwater.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Tuesday. It is June 16th on the JB and Goldwater Show. If you are listening on the Podbean app, we certainly appreciate it. If you're watching anywhere, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, although we're not actually live streaming on Instagram, Spotify, that works as well. We appreciate you. We are live, loud, and online every weekday, noon until 2. If you are watching, you may or may not recognize the guy who is sitting in JB's seat. It is Jeff McCarriger, a good buddy of mine, who is filling in today and tomorrow. So we'll get to you now. What's up, man?
So good to be on with you again, and awesome to be on the radio and podcasting, and man, I'm so glad we could make this work. I really am. I was excited to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I've already been on your show. You've got the High Ceiling podcast,
Right.
And we'll talk a little bit about that because Jeff and I have both been in the industry for a long time, so we both know a lot of people, so we both get to talk to a lot of fun people. One of those will be today at 12:30. We'll have Adam Amin on, formerly of ESPN and now with Fox Sports and the voice of the Chicago Bulls. That was recently announced, so we'll talk to Adam, and then at 1:30 we'll talk to Gene Sapikoff, and we can cover lots of different things with him. I know he was planning on heading down to the Heritage. I don't know if that is still in the plans. I don't know how much media is even allowed down there, but we'll check in with Gene Sapikoff. We have lots of fun stuff to get to, actually. We could start with cornhole. We can start with baseball.
Or we can start with me almost dying coming here.
Yeah, okay, let's do that. So I'm glad that you're here. So
Unreal, man.
what happened on the way?
Well, it's so ironic because my daughter is 15, so she's 15 and a half, so she's driving, so she has her permit. So you just wait. You talk about frightening.
Dude.
Although she is doing a good job. She really is. But I remember when my son was driving, I had this Honda Accord.
Okay.
And in the middle, so in between us, was the emergency brake. So that always made me feel somewhat comfortable that I'm just about ready to swear. We probably can't swear. Can
You
we?
probably shouldn't. I mean, we could get away with it, but this isn't a high ceiling show
I was
here.
going to say, my podcast, on mine we were kind of letting it go. So just in case anything unforeseen should happen, you could, I always felt good that I could, quickly, maybe bring us to a halt or something, if I had to.
Absolutely.
So, but now with these cars nowadays, it's either push button or it's or it's old school and it's over by your left foot. But anyway, so we don't have that, so it makes me feel it's a little unnerving. But anyway, so her and I yesterday just had the conversation that when you pull up to a stop sign behind somebody, I felt like she was pulling a little bit too close. So I said, make sure you always leave a safe distance. Like my rule of thumb is make sure you can see where their tires meet the pavement.
That's a good rule. I like that rule.
Just to give yourself an escape route, just in case something happens. Nowadays, the world is crazy. You know, if somebody comes up to her car or whatever, I was thinking more safety reasons. So today, make a long story short, so I'm coming down 41. And for those of you listening locally, you probably know this. When you're coming down 41, there's a gas station on your left. Well, the light was red there, so I pulled up behind this pickup truck in the straight lane. There's a turning lane on the left that fortunately was open because as I came to a stop behind this truck, I just happened to look up and I see another pickup truck barreling down on me, Darren. I mean, he's on his phone, his head is down, and he has no intention of stopping. So fortunately, I was able to dart into the turning lane that was open. He slams on the brakes, and he came within about 6 feet probably of the truck that I had pulled behind. So he would have easily slammed right
He
in the
would
back
have
of me.
xylophoned you.
Yeah. So you know what, people? Stay off your damn phones. Yeah. I mean,
The
gosh,
only
darn it.
yeah, right. The only accident that I've ever been in was that scenario. I must have been in college because I was in my first Wrangler, and I was home. I don't remember for what or when. It was a rainy day. I was stopped at the bottom of the hill at a stop sign, and I got hit from behind. That's the only time I've ever been driving during a car accident.
Did you see him coming like
Nope,
I did?
Nope, didn't see him.
Oh.
But I was a college kid, so I didn't know everything then that I know now.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, just stay off your phones.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I've actually done is because we travel a lot for what we do, so we're in rental cars a lot. And we don't know where we're going, and our family's texting, and did you get there? Are you safe? All this kind of stuff. So there's been times, literally, I'll just pull over. I mean, just throw your hands up in the air, take an extra couple minutes, pull over, text your family back, and then keep driving. I'm telling you, that dude didn't see us at all today.
Yeah, and even the voice texting, like you're still paying attention to your phone.
Because my phone sucks. I don't know. I don't know what is going on with this technology, but I feel like the phone should be smarter, right?
It's called a smartphone.
Well, yeah, and you would think it's called that for a reason. So when I text Kathy, who is in my contacts, her name is spelled with a K. There's nobody in here that's spelled with a C. Every time I try to voice text her, it always starts with a C.
You don't have a C friend?
No Kathy's with a C. Well, no Kathy's at all, actually.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah, there's C's in there. There's like Chris, and
Right, okay.
Carl, or whatever. But there's no other Kathy's in there except for Kathy with a K. And how about my daughter? It's my daughter is Noelle. And so when I try to text Noelle in a text, it spells it N-O space W-E-L-L. I'm like, come on, man.
No.
How does my phone?
Well,
Yeah. And yesterday, I actually have a nephew of mine, or not a nephew, my cousin, who's a Minneapolis police officer.
oh wow.
Yeah. So I mean, that's obviously been very heavy. He's been on the force for a long time. He has a great record, but obviously he and his family are going through a lot right now. And so I was just texting him yesterday, and I haven't texted him in a while, probably since last summer. I wasn't sure if he had my number, so I said, "Hey, Michael, it's Jeff. Hope you're doing well. Sorry you got to be going through this. Just want to let you know I'm thinking about you, love you, whatever." So I look at the text, and it says, it's Jeff, Geoff. It's my own damn phone. I mean, come on.
I do know a Geoff.
I do too.
And he's one of the guys who was recently named as a new voice of the Orioles. Went from single A to the damn Orioles.
Yeah. Oh,
Jeff Arnold. So, I mean, I did some of his demo reels and whatnot. He's great, and I'm super pumped for him. And I wish that this pandemic didn't hit so that he could actually get into a major league booth and start his job. Speaking of the Orioles, so we're going to get this out of the way right now. Jeff has a long history in minor league baseball. Jeff's been in broadcasting as long as all of us have been. You've done AAA. You've done some stuff out in Kansas City. Formerly the voice of the College of Charleston. He is currently the internationally acclaimed voice of cornhole on ESPN. We'll get to that. I mean, he's done a million things. He was the star of the now defunct American Sports Network and voice of Coastal Carolina. So you're doing a lot of things. Back in
when you start talking about it, I'm like, jeez.
Like, how old are you?
I was going to say, I'm feeling really old all of a sudden. Thanks a lot. Time to go.
So back in the day, I have another good buddy whose name is John Schaefer, who is also in the business. And John was in single A, then he got up to AAA for a while, and then he decided on a whim, I'm going to go to San Diego. So he did, and now he's working for one of the, I think there are two sports stations out there. I think it's Extra 13 1360, something like that.
Damn
but
it, I know he's already smarter than me.
Yeah,
Just
no.
up on a whim going to San Diego.
So he's doing great.
Not bad.
He also has a podcast, and his podcast dropped yesterday, his 10th episode. On that episode, he tells this story.
And I get a call from the AAA voice of the Norfolk Tides. And I don't even know the AAA voice of the Norfolk Tides. He just calls me out of the blue and says, hey, I know a coach at Longwood University in Virginia. Have you ever heard of Longwood? I said, no, I've never heard of Longwood. And I had been in Lynchburg for a couple of years. Well, he said, I pulled up a map, and it looks like you're relatively close, although nothing is close to this place. It's 45 miles, maybe more, 45 to 50 miles from Lynchburg. But he said, listen, they're going Division I this year. Their season starts in a month. They've got a radio deal. They've got everything in place, but they don't have a broadcaster. So they called me to see if I knew anyone. And I don't even know who you are, but I just figured I'd call since you're in the area. So he put me in touch with the coach. I called the coach, and I made my way for Farmville thinking I was interviewing for this job that I thought might be difficult to get because I'd never worked a basketball game in my life. Well, I get to Longwood, and I don't even interview. They just assumed that I had the job because I knew the guy in Norfolk, whose name, by the way, fails me right now, whoever called me in Norfolk, Virginia that day. I'm going to try to remember that by the end of this podcast. But so it was a huge break. They thought I knew. It was Jeff McGarriger, who was a really good broadcaster, has spent a lot of time in Charleston, has done a lot of national TV work, has done a lot of radio work. And he was the one to call me, I believe. And that's how this whole thing started. I go to Longwood. They're like, you've got the job. You know Jeff. I'm like, I don't really know Jeff, but okay.
Do you remember that?
I don't. You know how it is. We talk to. I tell you what though, it's about ready to make me cry though because I'm so happy to hear that because over the last 25 plus years, we get just like you do. We get so many young broadcasters who call us, and ask them for advice. And I try to be as honest as possible, and I try to help them because we all need help when we're coming up. And I never really hear back from them, so I always assume they either just bailed on the industry, or maybe they just went on to bigger and better things and just forgot about us. I kind of do. I'm trying to remember who the coach was that was there, but I kind of do remember that. But I'm glad that it worked out for him, and it's great to hear that he's doing so well because that's what it takes sometimes. It's just that one first break. So that's awesome. I love that. That's great.
So it was probably. So he's my age. We actually graduated Penn State together. We went to Nashville, the baseball winter meetings together.
Okay.
I ended up down here with the River Dogs, and he ended up in Lynchburg. So the
Nice.
precursor to that story was he had just gotten the number one job because he was an intern. He gets the number one job because his boss, who's Matt Province, had just moved on somewhere else, and then Province was the one who brought him to Lehigh Valley in AAA.
Yeah.
So the week prior to your phone call, Province had left. So he had just become like the guy, and he finally has a paying job in broadcasting. And the other thing is he's never, ever done basketball before at this time, ever. So he thought he was going there to interview.
Wow.
And they're like, well, yeah, no, you know Jeff. You're good.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know Jeff.
That's a great story, and I'm really happy for him. That's great to hear because, again, a lot of times we don't hear back from these guys.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So now Schaefer is doing great, and he's out there. He's out there in San Diego, and you can catch him on the air as well. He also does a lot with San Diego State, the Aztecs, who had their season cut short, and that stinks for them.
I'm gonna call his radio show and harass the crap out of him.
You should. Do you remember me from Norfolk in 2000, whatever it was?
Oh, that's funny. That's good. No, I love that. That's a great story. I'm happy for him.
So, we got plenty to get to on some actual stuff that's going on. You and I are both.
Yeah. What do we do? You guys take calls? Or you guys talk about headlines, or what? Because I can sit here and just kill 2 hours. You and I could easily kill 2 hours.
We killed an hour on the phone.
Stuff.
It's okay. You covered it well. We killed an hour on the phone yesterday without an issue at all. But we should talk baseball because we love baseball.
Yes.
Obviously, if the whole story we just told was about baseball. Rob Manfred last night. What'd you think?
Well, was his comment last night, because unless I missed it, last night. The fact that he's at kind of a no or very little confidence that the season has anything changed since that comment of little confidence.
Right. The comment was walking back.
Yes.
The comment from about a week ago when he said, I'm 100% confident. Then it was, I can't say that I'm 100% confident.
Okay, I'll say because if there's anything new this morning, then no, I have not seen it this morning. But yes, as of last night, yes, on the same page. It's such a fluid situation, and it's really tricky. And I've and you and I have joked before. I mean, it's my dad's fault. My dad is an attorney. And so he had ingrained in my head from the time that I was just a little boy that there are two sides to every damn story. Mm-hmm. So never jump to conclusions, never judge by a book by its cover, all this kind of stuff until you do your facts, and do your homework. So, so I have been following this, and the problem with this situation is that I can see both sides, and I feel bad for the fans because I don't know what they're going to do to resolve this. I don't know how technical you want to get, but I mean, really, both sides have an argument, Darren. I mean, they really do. I mean, the problem is at the end of the day, we're all saying, the typical line. It's billionaire owners, millionaire players, just play. But it's just not that easy. I mean, I wish that it was.
Yeah.
And I wish they could just play. But I did, I've been following it along. And so, you can't forget that back in March, both sides agreed that the players would play at a prorated rate. They knew at the time they were going to play 162 games. So, whatever they played, if it was 80 games, if it was 90 games, if it was 110 games, there would be a prorated amount. And I don't know how much in the minutia people want to get on this or how much people care about the details, but that was the deal.
Yep.
So if they played 80 games, it's your salary divided by, 80 games, and that's what you get paid. Well, so all of a sudden, the owners, if you read what the owners came back with, what they wanted to do, all of a sudden they realized, wait a second, we're not going to have fans in there, so we're going to lose a lot of revenue. So let's play with no fans, but let's, instead of paying you your prorated salary, let's pay you either 65, 75, 85% of your prorated. And that's why the players are getting upset, because they're like, wait a second. Not only are we only going to be getting half our pay, but now we're only going to be getting 75 or 83% of that prorated pay. So that's why they're upset. So they're like, no, you tell us how many games to play, and we'll play those games, and you pay us for those games. But the owners are saying no. If you look at our agreement, it says that we can go back to the negotiating table if there's not going to be players, and no one's been allowed to see this agreement. No one knows how much the owners are going to be losing because they won't be transparent with how much money they make. So it's become a big freaking mess.
Right, and as this has gone longer and longer and longer, I have been growing more and more pessimistic that we're actually going to see something. I mean, even in that original agreement, they came to an agreement that said if we can't iron everything out, Rob Manfred, the commissioner, can just unilaterally say, okay, we're going to play X amount of games, and this is how we're going to do it, and I have the power to do that.
Right.
But now it almost seems as though he's walking that back because he wants to avoid any type of litigation from the players. Because if they play and they don't get what they originally agreed to back in March, then they can come back at the league.
It'll go to arbitration.
And it's going to go around and around. Earlier this morning, Jeff Passan, who does a great job covering all this stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah,
he's so good.
Covers all this stuff for ESPN. He was on Get Up and shocked me, actually, because I saw last night and I thought, with everything going on, it seemed like a ploy for Manfred. It seemed like he was just so scripted, and it came off as fake to me. And what I'm referring to last night, there was this 2-hour ESPN special, The Return to Sports, 6 different commissioners, one-on-one with Mike Greenberg. All the conversations were taped. So I was more disheartened after hearing Rob Manfred yesterday. Jeff Passan on Get Up today had a different view.
Oddly enough, I believe this leaves baseball in a better place than it was going into yesterday. And I think it's because of Rob Manfred's words in totality. Let's look at all of the different things he said. Number one, he acknowledged that Major League Baseball is ready to pay players their full prorated salary. They have not gone there in terms of their offers at this point. I think even more than that, he went and said 3 different times that the owners want players back on the field. If that is true, Major League Baseball is in a position to make it happen. And after Rob Manfred's interview last night, Greeny, I spoke with sources all around baseball, and each of them agreed that Major League Baseball does not want to pursue litigation. They do not want a grievance setting that would come with implementing a season, which means they are open for a negotiated settlement. And in the end, I think that this thing actually is going to get done and that there is going to be baseball back on the field.
So that was Jeff Passan, who covers baseball as well and intimately as anybody at ESPN. That made me feel a little bit better, but there hasn't really been much news between then and now. I mean, it's only noon here on the East Coast.
My big question is, does anybody care?
I just want them on the
does
field.
Anybody really care? And the sad and real truth about baseball is that we are talking so much about baseball right now because of this contract dispute. Once it starts playing, it'll be dead. We're not going to talk about it anymore.
You don't think we'll talk baseball?
I mean, you will, because you're wearing your Nationals hat every day. You're a baseball fan. I'm a baseball fan.
Right.
But it will. I mean, yes, because it could, be a chance to be one of the big sports that's back on TV first. I don't know who's going to win first, if it'll be Major League Baseball or the NBA. But again, I guess my point is that we're talking so much about the negotiations now, but people are so passionate about this, but where was everybody last year during the regular season? It's not on sports radio at all. It barely gets a mention. I mean, you get some highlights on ESPN, but it's just not a topic of conversation. It's not top of mind. I mean, the NBA has really taken number 2 behind the NFL.
Right.
So it'll be, but so I don't know if anyone really cares. If they don't, if no one really cares, then they just need to try and just play and just get back on the field, because the worst thing that can happen to anybody, whether it's personally or professionally or in sports, is becoming irrelevant, and that's what's going to happen.
If they don't play, if you're right and nobody really cares and they don't play, then it is being overblown that it'll be this catastrophe if they don't play. I don't think it'll look very good if they don't play.
Right.
And I saw something today, actually. Ken Rosenthal had a piece today. It came out just before the show, and he eviscerates Manfred. He said, the best commissioners offer statesman-like presence and superior vision. Few ascribe those qualities to Manfred, and few would argue baseball is in a better place since he took over for Bud Selig on August 14th of 2014. His point is saying, strike a deal or your legacy is gone.
Well, it's hard for me to think that baseball is not in a good spot right now, because I believe they just signed, a $500 million deal with Turner Sports. So I'm not sure you can make that argument and then also say baseball is failing. It obviously is not, considering they just got $500 million freaking dollars. So I'm not sure I agree with that. But again, I'm just not sure how many people really care about this and about all the negotiation. And I really wish that they would. They agreed to the prorated salary, so just pay it.
Yeah,
just pay it. I mean, this year is bad for everybody. I mean, it just is. We're all just trying to survive and just kind of get through it and do what we can to make money and take care of our families and take care of our kids. I mean, the owners, they're not being transparent again at all about how much money they make, so which makes me believe that they're making pretty good money. But if you're not going to be transparent about that, if you're going to, I don't know. I just think that they just have got to just pay the players what you agreed to back in March and just move on.
Yeah.
Just move on.
What stinks is it's getting played out in public when there isn't sports going on. So it's dominating headlines and making everything look worse.
Yeah, and honestly, you know what I don't want to see? I don't want to see a 40-game season.
No.
I think that's so stupid. I don't want to see 40 or 50. I think they should come. If I were the commissioner and in charge of any of this, let's find a way. We've already lost 162 games. Let's play 81 games. Let's do 81 games in playoffs. That way, geeks like you and me can look back at this 10 years from now. We're not arguing about who our favorite player was back in the year 2020. Say, well, he played 81 games. If you multiply his numbers by 2, then it's easy math for people like me who went to Kansas. All we got to do is multiply by 2.
Yep.
But it is. I mean, you can just try and you can just take those numbers out an extra half year, so you can say, well, he hit 25. Well, he would have hit 50 if they would have had a full season. Just play 81 games in the playoffs and just be done with it. But they need to start soon. But do 81 games, have the playoffs, have neutral. I like the thought of doing it in Arizona where there's a dome or just
wherever.
Yeah, wherever they can play it. As long as there's a dome, that way they can play into November if they have to. But just make it nice, sweet, easy, tangible. 81 games, playoffs, and let's just move on.
So I am a Nationals fan, right? We've pointed that out like 4 times already today, and I'm wearing a Nationals hat.
Do you wear that hat every day?
Close to it. I have a visor I wear too, but now that I've got this fro going, the visor, it almost gets lost in the hair.
I can't remember last time I saw you. You weren't wearing the Nationals hat.
I don't love the curls, but
Why don't you get your haircut then?
Well, because I keep growing it out, and as it grows out, I'm like, well, how much farther can I take this thing?
Can I see it?
Yeah, well, I've got the hat on now, so it's all kind of like.
Oh, see, I like it.
Do you?
Yeah, I like their long.
So I'll wear it. So the family likes
You look like
it.
your dad.
Right, I know.
You really do.
I know. When I was like 13 or 14, a family friend, a neighbor, looked at me, looked at Dad,
Yes.
and goes,
You do.
You really don't have to wonder what you're going to look like when you grow up, do you?
It's good. Your dad was a good-looking guy. So,
Right.
yeah.
But that's where the hair comes from. Like, he rocked that fro, and I've always kept it short because
No, I like it longer.
It's really a pain.
What does Heather think?
Oh, she likes it longer.
Okay. Well, there's your
Right, so I can. I've got some time to mess with it here a little bit. Like, it's not like I'm going to be calling a game anytime soon, so my hair doesn't need to look great at the moment.
Sorry, I'm like totally. See why I do the podcast? Because that's what we can do. We can go all over the place.
But that's fine. The point being, with this hat
How'd we get
and the
from this?
Nationals, but because you told me to take my hat off, 50 games into the season last year. You know what the World Series champion, Washington Nationals, they were 19-31.
Yes, I totally forgot about
It was
that. You're right.
Fire Dave Martinez.
Yes.
Mike Rizzo isn't doing a good job. What in the world is going on?
Yeah.
World Series champs. That's when it was May 30th or 31st. They were 19-31, and then the mantra "Go 1-0 every day" was born.
Yeah.
Well, at least for the Nationals' sake, I'm sure thousands of teams have
I
used it
forgot
before.
that they were yeah.
19-31. So if it's a 50-game season, that's too short. Then again, like, I don't know, 70 would really make much of a difference. But
again, that's and to come back to this, that's what I'm afraid of now, because if the owners are saying, well, okay, now we got to pay, we did sign this, so now we have to pay them the prorated. Now they want to play, obviously, as few of games as possible, so that they have to pay the players in total less money, and then hope that they can recoup some of their money and make a lot of money in the playoffs when they can have fans. So I mean, that's the cat and mouse thing. It's a bunch of crap. Man.
yeah, isn't it?
It really is. It's just stupid. Again, I can see both sides, but at some point, we just got to play.
Yeah,
I do feel bad though. You and I talked about this a month ago. I mean, I do feel like my biggest fear a month ago is being realized, that regardless of all the negotiations, I'm just not sure how we're going to be able to pull this off. And with actually getting players on the field. That's another thing about baseball. They haven't even negotiated a health policy yet.
Right.
I mean, they've talked about it, obviously, and it's in the works, but they haven't agreed upon it yet. But I just don't understand how it's going to work. I mean, we're already starting to get football players at the NFL level who have tested positive. Major League Baseball players have tested positive. NBA players, as we know, have been testing positive. Darren, I really don't know how we're going to do this. I don't know how we're going to get players back on the field. There is just contact.
Mm-hmm. Lots of it.
I mean, you and I have spent years traveling with teams. I mean, years. I've been in clubhouses and in locker rooms and back in the training rooms, and these guys are constantly in contact and sharing things.
Yep.
And I don't know how we get away from that. And that's just off the field, let alone on the court or on the field competition. So
yep.
I don't know, man. It's going to be really interesting, because as players start to test positive, now what do the other teams do? And what happens if you have to forfeit a game, and now your season's shorter? Let's say South Carolina starts playing football games. All of a sudden Tennessee's got COVID, and they have to forfeit that game. I mean, I don't know how this is going to work.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot to be figured out.
Yeah,
we've got tons to get to, including a cornhole conversation that reached all the way up to the UFC level
Oh, that was classic. Oh my God, that was awesome.
So we'll get to that. Every sports discussion can also be thrown at our next guest coming up, Adam Amin, who is one of the best play-by-play announcers out there today. He is definitely clear of the moniker best young play-by-play guy out there because he is just simply one of the best. So he is coming up next as we roll along on the JB and Goldwater show with Jeff McCarriger acting as Jamie Bradford today.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks, not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
What's up, guys? It's JB. Obviously, things have been kind of crazy with the coronavirus taking over our lives. We're stuck inside with family, finding ways to be creative and probably tapping the liquor cabinet a little bit. If you don't have Patrick Davis's Whiskey Jam in yours, put on your mask and gloves and head to Bottles or Burris liquor stores here in Charleston. The Blackberry is my personal favorite on the rocks, but the original Whiskey Jam is Patrick's. So either way, you're winning with Whiskey Jam. WhiskeyJam.com, PatrickDavis.com.
Honey Baked Ham in Somerville and in Mount Pleasant is your home for catering and lunch. Honey Baked Somerville, owned by former Gamecock right-hander Mike Cisco, is just off the interstate and they are ready to cater to your next business or family meal. Plus, drop in for an incredible sandwiches daily for lunch. The Mount Pleasant location is at the foot of the Ravenel Bridge and always ready to serve and cater to your next meals as well. Plus, delivery is available. Honeybake.com to find your menu today.
As businesses start to open up around South Carolina, we have Ryan Nelson back in here to tell us about Dog and Duck Family Pubs, the 3 locations, and some new hours going on. What's up?
That's right. We now offer indoor dining and patio seating outside. The new hours are Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., and then Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. now. Slowly getting back into the normal routine, or so what we think, and we hope everybody comes out and supports local businesses like Dog and Duck.
And you still have family special meals as well?
That's right. Always the family-style meals, and you can always get curbside pickup or carry out. If you're not ready to venture outside yet, we're here for you.
The Habbo radio station everyone loves. I love them a lot.
JB and Darren.
I love you, man. I love you too, bud. I love you, dude. I love you, bro Montana. I love you, Holmes. I love you, Broseph Goebbels. I love you, Machacha. I love you, Tico Brohe.
Okay. Let's continue here on the JB and Goldwater show.
Yep, all production credit goes to Jamie Bradford. I say this a lot. He could easily be on the national scene doing production stuff for national sports radio or whatever he wants, but he doesn't want to because he wants to keep toiling away in this broadcasting world. We told you Adam Amin is going to be joining us, and he is now with us via Skype. Adam in Chicago, man, thanks for joining us.
It's good to see the face, good to hear the voice, man. That it makes me happy, legitimately.
Yeah. I think the first time we met was, I don't know, way back when I was doing some SoCon stuff. You came in and you were doing the championship, and I think you were one of the first who actually sat down and said, all right, I know you've been around the league for a while, so what should I know? And that doesn't really happen often when some of the bigger name guys come in and take over for guys who've been doing it all year long.
I do feel like you can spin that however you want to, DG. I think you can spin it in a way like, oh, he didn't put himself above anybody. He took the time out for the quote unquote little guy, which I don't necessarily think of it in that prism. Or you could spin it in the way of, this guy did no prep and clearly was just stealing all of the information that I have spent my entire year working on compiling, and this idiot is going to come in and just steal all the hard work that I put into it. So you could spin it that way too. I'm glad you spun it the other way. You could have spun it that way too if you wanted to, man.
Well, a couple years later, it got to the point where I became that guy. Like, I was going to the Conference USA tournament, and I was on the women's side, and they've been sitting here broadcasting it all year long, and I just stroll on in. I'm like, all right, time now for me. I'm gonna take over from here.
I hope it was a good impression. Obviously, your wonderful wife had messaged me a couple times because I was saying Clemson incorrectly, and she was very nice about it and was like, "Hey, just so you know, we usually say it Clemson, like we make sure it's an S sound, not a Z sound." I was like, "Thanks for that. I'm not from here. I'm not from the South. I've never covered college athletics at this level before. Thank you for the insight." Never have called it Clemson since, and I've done plenty of Clemson games. I've always called it Clemson because of your wife, so I owe her that, if nothing else.
Hey, Adam, it is great to meet you and great to see you, bud.
Yeah, man, you guys too. Seriously.
I've listened to you for a long time. You do a great job. Hey, did you just did I read you got a new contract? You're with Fox now?
Sliding over to Fox after 9 years at ESPN. New chapter, I guess, for lack of a better term. I guess it's bittersweet to leave ESPN. Obviously, it doesn't. I don't know how impactful it is right now, considering the circumstances that we're all in. So it hasn't really felt like a major change just yet. I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will once we get a little deeper into whatever sense of normalcy we can find through sports. So hopefully that'll be sooner rather than later. But obviously everybody's trying to get to that point in the healthiest and safest way possible.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's an awesome move. Hey, how did you make that decision? Because even though I don't work on the same level as you do with ESPN, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of negative things at times said out there about ESPN, and they're not perfect, but they've always been good to me. They've been great to you. How difficult was that decision for you?
Oh, it was brutal. I talked to a couple of guys that have worked at ESPN and have since moved on, and they all said it in very similar fashions. They're like, you kind of, especially for me, because I got hired as a kid. I got hired at 24 essentially, and that was like formative years, not just as a broadcaster, which it were. Like those years were incredibly important to just growing as a professional. But I'm like trying to learn how to pay bills and pay off student loans and like get an apartment and buy furniture and I spent 25 minutes reading about tax-free municipal bonds this morning. So clearly adulthood is going swimmingly.
Yeah, swimmingly. I'm not sure if that's the right way to go.
So this is the type of stuff I read about now as a quote unquote adult. But like you get hired as a kid, you're growing as a person too, and that was 9 years of essentially your childhood as a professional. That's like the equivalent of when you're a teenager as a kid. You're learning a ton, you're growing a ton, and you have to kind of at some point, whether it's you go to college or you graduate high school or you go get a job, whatever it is, like you're graduating from that portion of your life. And that's kind of how it feels like for me right now. So with all that emotional tie, along with everything that they, like you guys talked about, they were great to me professionally, all that. It's hard, man. It's hard to move past that, but necessary in the sense of, growing up a little bit.
If you are just listening and not watching the video stream, this is the voice of Adam Amin, now with Fox Sports, and also the Chicago Bulls, man. You grew up a Bulls fan. Now you're going over to call the Bulls games. That's got to be pretty cool. You got to be excited.
Definitely, man. It's that's one of those.
Wait a second. Wait a second. A new deal with Fox and the Bulls?
Yeah, things are good. Things are good in Adam's world.
Damn it, dude! Share the wealth. You need some help.
If only we could all enjoy it together, I would be much happier about it. It's tough to fully celebrate it, but to go back to what you said, DJ, it's still surreal. This is people are like, oh, this must have been your dream job growing up, and it wasn't, because I never thought this was ever even a possibility.
Yeah, right.
Like working the Bulls games was like the biggest bonus in the history of bonuses. Like that's my hometown team. I spent my entire childhood with this team. The only thing that would make it like maybe be as impactful emotionally as if I were the voice of the Cubs, and I don't know if I could do that. Like that's almost too much of a connection. Going back to like my dad and stuff. So like that's almost too beyond the emotional spectrum to comprehend. Like this is it's like the perfect amount of my fandom. I can inject that into this job. Darren, you know what it's like when you work for a team, you get invested, man. You get invested in the kids, the coaches, their families, the kids' stories. That's how I feel about a lot of the guys. I'm invested in them and their families, and it's been cool to be a fill-in for the last 2 years now. Whenever we get back to a full season and the Bulls are in, it'll be fun to be a part of that.
All right, Adam, that brings up a great question I have for you, and I've thought about this many times. So,
all right.
So, is there a team? You're a Penn State guy, is that right?
No.
Where'd you go to college?
I'm a Valpo guy, so I'm
Valpo.
I don't only stick with Penn State guys.
I just made the assumption since you're
no,
on
it's, listen, it's these mafias that take over, right? You
Yes.
got your
Syracuse,
Mafia.
Penn State. all right. So you went to Valpo. So is there a school where if the job came open, you just couldn't take? Like, I'm not sure that there's a job that I wouldn't take, but I went to Kansas, and I've often thought to myself, what happens if Missouri called and said, "Hey, we need you to do the radio"? I don't know if I could do it.
You know, I mean, listen, I don't think of it this way, but I'm sure a lot of fans do. Like, I was up for the White Sox job a few years ago, and my friend Jason Benetti got it, and I'm thankful that he did. And, he absolutely was the right guy for it. Yeah, but I was in the running for it. I thought, man, it'd be kind of weird to grow up a hardcore Cub fan yes. and then potentially be the voice of the Chicago White Sox. But I don't think it's as big of a deal to somebody like me, because we didn't play the White Sox at all until '97, until interleague started to become a thing. Maybe you played them in spring training. Other than that, you never saw the White Sox. So it wasn't like I went to White Sox games as a kid too. I enjoyed it. So I can't say it's that, but I think the Pistons. I don't think I could take the Detroit Pistons job based on how much they scared me as a child. I think. Too much personal trauma to be able to take that job. I hope that answered your question. I think that's where you were going.
Yeah, no, that's good. No, I lived in Chicago for a couple of years in the late '90s, so I became a huge Bulls fan. Obviously, watched them every night, even when I wasn't living in Chicago. But yeah, I was getting PTSD watching some of the clips during the Last Dance of the Pistons.
There's a lot of forearm shivs and stuff going on. Man, a lot of knocks to the chest. That was a lot of trauma for a little kid to watch.
Yeah, that's good.
Adam, Jeff and I were just talking about baseball, and will that be part of the gig with Fox? Is it going to be baseball and football as well?
Yeah, MLB and NFL were the two main selling points, and it's hard to comprehend what, if anything, a baseball season might look like right now.
Right, and so we were talking about exactly that. And Rob Manfred's comments last night. Jeff Passan, ESPN, was on Get Up this morning, and I played his comments just a little while ago. He thinks, based on what he heard from Manfred last night, that the season is actually more likely than not. I mean, I kind of had a different view when I listened to it, but he thinks it's more likely. Where do you stand with that?
Well, it's interesting to see what guys like Trevor Bauer, who's been very outspoken during this whole process. It's interesting what guys like that have tweeted. He had a very interesting Twitter thread basically in response to what Rob Manfred said last night, and he's kind of outlining what looks to be like PR strategy essentially for Major League Baseball to not only get a season going, but to also turn as much of the I guess you're turning blame. You're looking to come out of this on the right side of the PR and the optics of all of it. Bauer's kind of outlining what he thinks is going to happen. All right, we've got a June 28th deadline now based on everything you've said. Why do we need to delay 2 weeks longer? Is it just for the sake of getting the optics on your side to make us look worse when we've already agreed to certain aspects of a potential negotiation? It's turning into a war of optics now, and while I think that obviously got some value in the short term, I don't think it has a lot of value in the long term. And that's what the main knock against a lot of the owners have been. Listen, players deserve some portion of the blame in this as well. It does take two sides to make this work, but it feels like, based on what we've seen, that the players have done as much of what they can do to get whatever they can, but also make some compromises, whereas it looks like the owners are, again, just optically looking at more of a short-term, trying to minimize a short-term loss rather than look at the long-term sustainability of the franchises that they own and run. So I think if you're looking to win the optics battle, you can win it in the short term. I don't think fans are stupid. I think, especially after the dust is cleared and they go back and evaluate all this, I don't think it's going to look good for owners in the long run if they continue on this path right now.
Hey, I'm not sure how much time we have with you, so I just want to get right to it. I don't know if you had a chance to listen before you came on, but Darren and I were talking about it, and I brought this up a month ago. Once I started traveling over the last month and a half, really kind of opened my eyes to a lot of things. I guess my main opinion is, as far as getting fans back in the stadiums, Adam, I think we can do that. I've traveled a lot now. The airports are freaking slammed with people. So if we can do that, I think we can even more safely get fans into the stadiums. But what do you think are the chances of actually getting players back on the field safely? Because at the end of the day, Adam, they are the ones, and this is why I do feel compassion for the players, whether it's in baseball or the NBA or in the NFL. Sure. we as fans, we're greedy. We're saying, hey, we need the distraction, we need the entertainment, we need something to watch with our kids. But they are the ones who are assuming all of the risk. And we've already seen now COVID, positive COVID tests in all the major sports. Yep. So I don't know, man. Like how are we going to make this work? How are we going to get players back in the field?
I think it's an individual thing. It really is, and that's why it's become owners versus players. These are two autonomous entities, right? It's this nebulous group of rich guys who own these teams that don't want to accept any of the risk, and it's this nebulous entity of players who are too greedy and don't understand what their participation in this means to the country at a time like this. I don't think that's true. I think the players have full understanding why their presence on TV, at these games and on television. I think I don't think they're stupid. I think they're well aware what their place in the current standing of society is. There is value to them being on the field, performing a job that they get paid handsomely to do. I can't argue against that. I can't argue that a good chunk of them are paid handsomely to do this as a job. But that doesn't mean it doesn't come with certain risks. We've always accepted injury as an inherent risk to whatever activity that we're in, right? You go out and play on the monkey bars, there's inherent risk to that. You might fall into the wood chips. Like, there's inherent risk in all that. And over time, we've come to accept that. The reason we can't accept what this is because it's very sudden. COVID-19 was very, I know you can argue the merits of, well, people knew, people didn't know, this country's lying, this government's lying, whatever. It happened very fast in the grand scheme of things, right, in months, and it shut down an economy or partially shut down an economy in a matter of months. So this happened very quickly, and we're already looking at potential strategies to mitigate this and maybe negate it. Wear your masks. We'll have a vaccine at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later. And in my head, I honestly have this faith that we could be back to some semblance of normalcy. And I mean, almost looking like what it looked like before all this within the next 9 months. I honestly have hope in that because I trust the ingenuity of the country, of medical experts, of researchers. I trust that we'll be back to that at some point. But because of that, because there's that hope in a lot of us, we're kind of negating in our heads the risk factor that is involved in this. And until you eliminate that risk factor, which is going to take, as I said, a minimum of about 9 months based on getting a vaccine and then distributing it across the country, until you have that, you're never going to get 100% comfort. Right. And that just doesn't go for Major League Baseball or the NBA or NFL or sports. Yeah. That goes for every industry that has any semblance of volatility in this country right now. So there's a reason that we understand that, but there's also a reason that we don't accept that risk isn't as effective or isn't as ingrained because it happened very suddenly, and we're convinced that it can be rid of very suddenly. Which in a matter of a year, if you were to say we get rid of COVID-19 in a year, that's miraculous. In the grand scheme of human history, that would be one of the most miraculous feats ever achieved by human beings. So trying to keep that in perspective is really hard, especially when we're thinking about baseball, which, as we've shown, doesn't have nearly the impact that the medical field does and all this. But we have to kind of understand where these players are coming from. That risk is still existing. Even if it only lasts for a year in the course of a 20-year baseball career, that risk still exists, and I think we have to understand that. Long-winded answer, I know, Jeff, but I hope that gave you some perspective.
Yeah, no, that's good. I just think, I mean, to be 100% honest, I just think that this is a slippery slope when it comes to contact sports because
Very fair.
The
KBO has done a lot of good work. But South Korea, just as a country, was out in front. Granted, they're smaller. I get that too. Yeah. But they were out in front of this months before we were. And that's why they have been playing competitive baseball for the last month plus. It's because that they were out in front of it.
Yeah.
can we get to that point? Yeah, I honestly think we can mitigate a lot of this stuff. I think the NBA's infrastructure for Disney, they've done a really good job of creating a good infrastructure and a protocol. Can Major League Baseball do that? I hope that during this time of back and forth jawing with the nebulous entities of owners and players, there are some people that have dedicated their time and focus to the protocol aspect of this. And if the protocol is in place and it makes 90% of the players feel healthy, safe, and comfortable, that's a start. That's great. And I think that's where you got to be gunning for right now.
Yeah, I'm just really concerned because with contact sports, with golf and with baseball, cornhole, NASCAR, I mean, some of these other things, we can do this. We can do this. I mean, it's really, you can do it within the framework of the game. But with contact sports, Adam, I just don't know how we're going to do it without a treatment. I just don't see, and I hate to be so negative about it. And Darren and I talked about this a month ago. I hate to be so negative about it, but I just don't know. Like a couple weeks ago, I had on my podcast, I had a friend of mine, Brandon Noble, who played football for the Cowboys and the Redskins
and Penn State.
Yeah, and Penn State. And he said to me, he said to me exactly what you said, Adam. He said, as a football player, we always went to the field with an inherent risk. He's like, I could break my neck. I could blow out a knee or a hip or an arm or something like that. But the difference here, like I discussed with him and with you, is that this is different because you don't bring a broken neck or a broken knee or a torn ACL home with you. That doesn't affect your wife. It doesn't affect your kids. And that's the biggest thing that I'm struggling with right now is that, we want these guys to get back on the field, but whatever risk they're assuming is also going to affect their family. Without a treatment out there, I'm just not sure how we're going to be able to do this on a large scale, but we'll see.
I don't think it's a matter of if there's going to be a case. It's a matter of when.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you guys pointed it out already. Major League Baseball, NFL, MLB, NHL, all these 4 major sports have already reported positive cases, and we haven't even played some of these seasons yet, or the resumptions of. So it's not a question of if, it's a matter of when. And if you're prepared for the when, great. If people are willing to take the risks about whenever the when takes place, okay. But I can understand fully why players are hesitant about this, especially guys like Mike Trout, I think, just had a kid.
Yes.
Like Chris Bryant just had a kid. Like
that's what I'm talking about.
They have priorities that take place over their jobs. As any one of us, and I understand they make a lot more money than all of us, anybody in that position would be focused on the inherent risk to their family immediately before anything else, and rightfully so.
Has Fox said anything about broadcast plans, about you being on site? Even the Bulls. I mean, I've seen stories about TNT's coverage potentially down there in Disney World, and obviously I think there was a Major League Baseball story out there that the odds of the road team traveling radio or TV pretty slim. Has Fox said anything? I'm guessing they're preparing both ways.
I imagine they're preparing both ways. I haven't been privy to any of those conversations, and I can't imagine that those conversations will have any concrete sureness to themselves until Major League Baseball and the NFL have more concrete plans.
Yeah.
And I think as a TV network, that's your job. Your job is to plan as much as possible and then react to whatever the situation is. And I think that's the line of thinking that ESPN is taking. I'm sure that's the line of thinking that Fox is taking. And that's all you can do. You can try to get out in front of it, but it's a lot of thinking and man hours that you're probably wasting when that possibility may not be there in the long run. So I know they're in communication. I don't know what decision's going to be made, but all the things that you guys talked about, all of them are on the table. All are possibilities. Yeah. All is a possibility for the fall.
Well, man, I appreciate you jumping on here with us. We've kept you long enough. Congratulations on all the success and continued good luck, man. We'll be watching.
No, I appreciate you guys. It was a great conversation to see you guys and hear you guys. It's always a pleasure.
All right, man. You too. Be good.
Thanks, Adam.
So that's Adam Amin, formerly ESPN and now Fox Sports and the Chicago Bulls. So he grows up a Bulls fan, and now that's his gig. He's been filling in for I guess he's been filling in for a couple of years now. Would it be Kansas if is that a dream job of yours? Would it be Kansas? Would it be you're a big Iowa guy? You got problems up at Iowa right now. Orioles
problems up there.
What would be your dream
not
job?
The Orioles. My dream job would probably be Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, if I had to pick one job of all of them, just off the top of my head, I guess I'd say Dodgers.
Yeah,
just Southern California.
I think
if we had a team here in Charleston,
that's
great.
locked up for a long time. I think with Joe Davis.
But, hey, that's not what you said. You just said if I could have any job. So I mean, if that would be the I mean, Kansas obviously would be. You know, I mean, Kansas would be great. But I got to tell you, I have fallen in love with the SEC. Living down here for the last 10, 11 years. I just have. And I know that's gonna make a lot of people angry probably.
Don't trust me. Down here, it's going to make a lot of people happy.
Yeah, but except for the Gamecock fans. They'll probably but, you know, I just love the SEC. I've loved traveling around. I've loved going to different games at their site. When you're at an SEC, when you're at a Clemson game, it's great. Don't get me wrong. I love it. But it's hard for me to get into Clemson versus Syracuse, Clemson versus Virginia, Clemson versus Wake Forest, Clemson versus a lot of these. When you go to a South Carolina game and Auburn's in town or Alabama's in town or even Tennessee, even though they haven't been very good, is in town and the blimp is there, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Like I just really have fallen in love with with the SEC. So I mean, if I could take any college job, I would love an SEC job. I think it'd be so much fun. They're just always relevant and it's always exciting. It's always a big deal. Everyone's always talking about them. I just love that.
Damn, Big Ten guy, an Iowa fan, living in the South and has jumped ship.
I mean, yes, the Iowa job would be. I mean, if Iowa called and said, "Hey, we want you," just like with Roy Williams going back to North Carolina.
Yep.
It's really tough to say no to your hometown team. But.
Yeah. The reason I got out of strictly radio stuff was twofold. It was, all right, if I'm going to be the voice of Penn State, right? If that is the goal, if that's the dream, what's it take to get there?
Yeah.
And my thinking at the time. This is 10. I was doing Citadel stuff. I was Citadel guy 9, 10, and 11. 2009, 10, and 11. So, married at the time. Do I want to move from Charleston? Does my wife want to move from Charleston and go to, I don't know, pick a MAC school? Bowling Green? Toledo? Like some mid-step between the Citadel and a big-time job? Do you want to move there for not a whole lot of money, and then you're losing the wife's salary also because we're moving to the middle of nowhere?
Yeah.
And then maybe or maybe not I would ever have an opportunity. I mean, the guy doing play-by-play now is still the same guy who was doing it then. So I said, yeah, maybe that's not the route.
So many things have to go your way.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot behind the scenes with these jobs.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't really regret that. I
No,
wish I did more
we-
radio now than I do.
When we live, when you live in a place like Charleston, we really do get spoiled. I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about, and you're right. There's been many jobs that have come open at that kind of mid-major level, like full-time jobs. I've been like, but I live in Charleston.
Right? Do I even want to apply? Yeah. Like, do I want to go down that road?
The kids are in school. The kids are comfortable. Yeah, I'm with you. It makes it tough.
Yeah. Which makes it even more impressive what John Schaefer did, who we brought up at the beginning of the show because you and he randomly crossed paths, whether you knew it.
By the way,
going to San Diego.
I want to go back to something that Adam said about as far as being on site versus being in studio. A couple things. One, the fact that Jeff Gordon and Mike Joy are not at a NASCAR race blows me away. I mean, they have not been nearly as good in the studio as they are when they're live at the race. And why they can't socially distance those guys in the press box at Charlotte Motor Speedway is beyond belief. I mean, I'm a closet NASCAR. I guess I'm not a closet.
Not anymore. You're not.
But I am a NASCAR junkie. It is my guilty sport. I remember Steve Zabin, who you and I both love.
Oh yeah,
Steve does a great job with.
Where are you at? What y'all?
Yeah, that was one of my all-time favorite segments. But he does this thing. You know, what's your guilty sports passion? NASCAR and racing is mine. They need to get those guys at the track because it sounds terrible when they're not there.
And it's easy.
Yeah,
for them.
I'm telling you, if we can do it with cornhole, I mean, they do it with Trey and I. You walk in, you wear a mask, you take the mask off when you broadcast. Trey and I are sitting much further apart than you and I are. You and I are at least 6 feet apart right now. They put Trey and I at tables on the separate ends of the court. I mean, they keep us a good 15 feet apart. Why can't they do that at the NASCAR level? But that, and the other thing is, I don't know if you heard this, but when I was traveling around doing basketball last year, some of the coaches were saying this is basketball, not football, because they don't see us, but with basketball, we actually have interaction with the coaches, game days, and the coaches were saying, why are they putting you guys in the studio? Like basketball coaches are a little OCD anyway. They want to have their broadcasters, whether it's local or national, they want you there, which I thought was really strange. I mean, it was the first time I had heard that, but I had many coaches who told me last year, don't let them put you in the studio. Tell them you need to be here. And I'm like, well, you're the one who needs to call because they're not going to listen to me. But
by all means, please make that phone call because look, we all agree that we would prefer to be on site.
Selfishly, we would, yeah. It's nice to hear from somebody else.
Executives would agree as well. They would rather that everybody is on site, pandemic or not. But then dollars and cents have started to dictate what they do. But with basketball coaches, and I don't know if anyone realizes this or not, from a calling a game standpoint, football-wise, you do a lot of conference calls and whatnot. If you get to a big enough level, you can fly into, say, Tuscaloosa on Thursday and deal with one team Thursday, another team Friday or whatnot. And, basketball coaches, you get a lot of your stuff the day before, the day of, when you go to practice, when you go to shoot around, the day of the game. Just a couple hours before the game when you're all at the court, just kind of joke. That's when you get most of your good information. That's when coaches learn to trust us to give us information.
Yeah, exactly.
And unfortunately, it's also one of the easiest ones to do from the studio, so it's one of the first ones that gets put into the studio.
And I think ESPN realizes that because there was talk. I mean, I can speak to the cornhole level again. There was talk of just doing it virtually, but they said no. Let's get the guys there.
That's
good.
So
I'm hoping that continues because I just cannot believe that Jeff and Mike are not at the races. It's just not the same.
Yeah.
As a fan, I want to know that my broadcasters are there. I don't know. Maybe it's just maybe I'm biased because it's the way I make a living. But as a fan, I want my broadcasters to be there. Like if I was watching Joe Buck and Troy Aikman and they weren't there, I don't know. That doesn't have the same impact to me.
You can't see.
I love that they're there.
Yes, you need to be able to feel the game. You need to be able to feel the atmosphere. You need to be able to see things that the camera doesn't see. Like if right now, I mean, I can look out the window. You can't see that. But I'd like to know, if it's pouring or something. Same thing at a game. Yeah. Maybe there's something going on in the stands over there. I'd like to know. And if you're in a studio, you can't. I also want to know more about cornhole because I've become more and more intrigued because I might be one of your most loyal viewers. I think almost every Saturday.
You're not alone. Oh, you're not alone. It's just fun. It's just great to watch. It's a lot of fun.
It is. It really is. So we're going to talk a little bit about cornhole. Coming up, we have our national anthem presented each and every day at the start of the second hour, which is now already past, but, around 1 o'clock. It's presented each and every day by the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. Also coming up next hour, aside from cornhole, Jeff and I will talk about this NFL broadcaster list that The Athletic put out. Actually, Richard Deitch, who is awesome. If you like sports media, if you like this conversation at all, you would really like Richard Deitch because he goes in depth with a lot of it. He did a fan survey of NFL broadcasters, sideline reporters, pregame show, all that stuff. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Some Clemson, some South Carolina news, some conflicting news on A.J. Lawson, whether or not he is going to keep his name in the draft or come back. There was a report that he's coming back. Then that report was refuted. We'll get to that. And more. I don't know. I'm sure we have other stuff that we're going to get to as well. This is the JB and Goldwater Show. Jeff McCarriger is sitting in for Jamie Bradford today, and we'll be right back after the national anthem at the top of the next hour.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks. Not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
What's up, guys? It's JB. Obviously, things have been kind of crazy with the coronavirus taking over our lives. We're stuck inside with family, finding ways to be creative and probably tapping the liquor cabinet a little bit. If you don't have Patrick Davis's Whiskey Jam in yours, put on your mask and gloves and head to Bottles or Burris Liquor Stores here in Charleston. The Blackberry is my personal favorite on the rocks, but the original Whiskey Jam is Patrick's. So either way, you're winning with Whiskey Jam. WhiskeyJam.com, PatrickDavis.com.
Baked Ham in Somerville and in Mount Pleasant is your home for catering and lunch. Honey Baked Somerville, owned by former Gamecock right-hander Mike Sisko, is just off the interstate and they are ready to cater to your next business or family meal. Plus, drop in for an incredible sandwiches daily for lunch. The Mount Pleasant location is at the foot of the Ravenel Bridge and always ready to serve and cater to your next meals as well. Plus, delivery is available. Honeybake.com to find your menu today.
As businesses start to open up around South Carolina, we have Ryan Nelson back in here to tell us about Dog and Duck Family Pubs, the 3 locations, and some new hours going on. What's up?
That's right. We now offer indoor dining and patio seating outside. The new hours are Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., and then Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. now. Slowly getting back into the normal routine, or so what we think, and we hope everybody comes out and supports local businesses like Dog and Duck.
And you still have family special meals as well?
That's right. Always the family-style meals, and you can always get curbside pickup or carry out. If you're not ready to venture outside yet, we're here for you.
JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
Welcome back, JB and Goldwater Show. You are listening live on the Podbean app. We appreciate that. If you are watching us live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Periscope, we thank you for that as well. Jeff McCarriger is sitting in for Jamie Bradford, and we should tell you this as we move our way through the, let's say, the second hour of the lunch hour. Right? Because we can all take an extra hour, and we don't have bosses. But if you have a boss, take an extra hour. And here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to DB's Cheesesteak, and you're going to get yourself the best cheesesteak in town. It's in Avondale in West Ashley. You can get a buffalo chicken cheesesteak with the fried onions on it and the boardwalk fries. I know. I'm making you hungry. Jamie normally makes me hungry, so he's not here. It's my job to make you hungry. DB's Cheesesteak is awesome. If you don't want to go out, you can have it ordered and delivered by every single food delivery app that you can find. DB's Cheesesteak.
I'm glad you said that, and advertising works, because you know what? Living over here, I forgot about it.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I used to work over there, so we were over there all the time, so we could eat there.
Yeah.
I forgot about it.
Yeah, but it's good. Like, really good.
Advertising works.
Yeah, advertising does work.
Oh, my God, it's good. Yes, it's very good.
They started on James Island. I don't know if you were here.
No, actually, the first one I ever went to was on James Island.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was probably like right when you got here.
Yeah.
And then they moved into what is now the old Krispy Kreme building over there in West Ashley. Jeff McCarriger is the voice of cornhole on ESPN. How in God's name did you become the voice of cornhole?
It actually started about a year and a half ago. There's a logo. ESPN hires out a lot of production houses, for lack of a better term, just to kind of keep it simple. Production houses to do their live productions, and so Tupelo Raycom is one of those production houses that they hire as kind of a contract company to do a lot of their on-site production, and they've been great to me. Tom Cavanaugh, David Harris, those guys. I mean, for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. They'll call me to do one-off events. There'd be, baseball or basketball. I've done a few football games for them. Soccer.
When did you do soccer?
I did the Big South just last year. I did the Big South. I've done it a couple times. The Big South Soccer Championship. And I didn't know anything about soccer. I shouldn't say that. I've watched.
There's
I
a ball.
Like
11 people.
I watch like a lot of other people. I'll watch sometimes, with the MLS and obviously watch the World Cup. I was a big fan, so I'm like, sure, I'll do it. But anyway, so anytime they call, I try to volleyball. So I mean, it's just always been one-off stuff that I've done for them. Anyway, so they called me and said, "Are you interested in doing cornhole?" And I said, "This would have been at least a year and a half ago." And I said, "Yeah." I said, sure. I said, absolutely. I said, I used to play it all the time. I mean, I grew up in Iowa and went to Kansas, and I said, I love it. I said, I think it'd be kind of fun. Okay, we'll let you know. Well, they ended up finding a different guy. I was kind of the B plan. It sounded like they'd already kind of offered it to somebody else, and they weren't sure if he was going to take it. So he did. It was Evan. I can't
Lepler.
remember. Yeah, yeah. So Evan took it, but then Evan,
who the frisbee.
Well, yeah. So
ultimate.
So Evan did it. Evan did it for a few tournaments, and then he got. You talking about my guilty passion being NASCAR and being racing. His is ultimate frisbee apparently. So when this job came open, he's like, heck yeah, I want to do that. So he actually left the cornhole to go do.
He goes all over the world and does frisbee.
Yeah. So then all of a sudden, Tom calls me back. He's like, "Hey, are you still interested in doing it?" This is now about I don't know, 9-10 months ago. I said, "Yeah." I said, "Let me know." I said, as long as it doesn't interfere with a lot of the Coastal Carolina stuff that I was already doing, as part of the ESPN Plus package. And he's like, "Yeah." So I did the National Collegiate Championship in Myrtle Beach last December. And it went really well. Got along really well with Trey Ryder. We call him the Kirk Herbstreit of cornhole.
He's mastered the telestrator.
Trey is really good. I mean, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's awesome.
Really
he's
good.
Really good. He is like the Kirk Herbstreit. I actually call him the Jay Billis because like Jay Billis is an attorney on the side. At least I think he still is. Trey actually is an engineer. I mean, big time smart kid. Like, engineering school at Clemson, has a really nice job.
And a Clemson guy.
Yeah. Super smart. Terrific guy. So he works when I say full time, that probably doesn't even do it justice. I mean, he's probably putting in 50 or 60 hours a week at work and doing all this cornhole stuff and all the features on the side. But anyway, so Trey and I hit it off great. Stacey Moore is the commissioner, loved him. Bernie, Mike, I mean, all these guys of the league, they're just great people. Like, you can't go to one of these events and not walk away without a smile on your face saying, man, that was a lot of fun. I mean, they're just great people. So then they asked me to do the Super Bowl weekend stuff in Fort Lauderdale. I said, sure, no problem. And they said, we'd like to have you for the season. Great. They said, next event is in Cleveland. That was on March 13th. And then as I'm headed up on March 12th is when our world just totally changed. So I'm on a plane headed for Cleveland. I get off the plane. I got a bunch of messages. Got a buddy of mine from a medical device company who's calling me saying you need to get home. 70 million people are going to die. This is terrible. And so we never did the Cleveland event. And at that point, they thought the league was gonna fold actually because they don't have a lot of cash funds. But then ESPN, the partnership with ESPN really believed in it. Really wanted to fire it back up. And knew they could do it safely with the social distancing, no fans. And so again, they asked me, hey, are you still on board? We want to get this thing going in Rock Hill. This was, I guess, in May. And they said, we want to do 7 qualifiers leading up to our national championship again, or, to our national and then world championships. So I said, I'm in. I mean, as you and I both know, there's not a whole lot to do in the summertime anyway. So if it wasn't this, it'd be nothing.
Yep.
I mean, I do a little bit of baseball, but obviously there's no baseball. So yeah. So you know how it is. It's just one phone call leads to another, and that's how it happened.
And then all of a sudden it happens. So if you haven't watched, first of all, you have to.
It is amazing. It really is.
These guys are. We all know what cornhole is. We can all play. We can all go out and have a couple beers and toss bags. I need to get my lingo down. I caught one of the commercials on Saturday, and it was promoting like a cornhole lingo site that you go and learn everything. You can probably help me with that. But these guys are stupid good. I mean, it's like if they want to drop it in the hole or, I don't know, bounce a bag. I don't know what the terms are. They can do whatever they want. Are there different types of beanbags?
There are different types of bags.
Because sometimes
yes.
it says the super says like type of bag or something.
Oh, there's many types of bags, and that's a big part of the game is which bags you're going to choose, and then each bag has a slick side and a sticky side.
Really?
So if you want to try and push somebody else's bag, you need to throw that slide side to try and really push a bag up. But if you want to just toss up and get it to stick and maybe block, then you want to throw the sticky side. I mean, there is a ton, and there are some bags that are stickier than others, some that are slicker than others. So that's I mean, I guess the best analogy I have, just to make it tangible for everybody, is it's like a major league pitcher. They've been throwing baseballs for so long that even the strike zone, from 60 feet, 6 inches away to us seems so small. I mean, they can put it on the black, inside, outside, knee high, thigh high, belt high, chest high. I mean, they can do whatever they want with that baseball just because they've been doing it for so long. Same thing with these guys. If there's just a little bit on the left side of the hole that they want to aim for, they go to the left side of the hole, right side of the hole. If they want to end up short, they hit it short. The only factor to it is that because it's so new, and a lot of these guys haven't been on TV, it's kind of like golf. The biggest challenge, these guys can throw bags anywhere they want, anytime they want. It's all up here now. It's all in their head. Just like golf. I mean, it's and there's pressure. There's no fans there, so it's so freaking wild, man. The fact that there's no fans there, they can hear everything that we're saying. And there's a lot on the line. I mean, these guys have a chance to really make, some decent money.
What's the purse?
And $25,000 for the one in July. And it'll be more than that, obviously, in August for the World Championships.
And the team is 2 people, so you're 12.5 each?
For the doubles, yeah.
Oh, there are singles?
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a singles championship also. That's going to be in August.
Okay.
The one coming up, the Pro Invitational coming up in July in Valley Forge is for $25,000 to the doubles champion, yeah.
That's awesome.
But the big thing is that again, like many athletes, this is just on a smaller level for right now. The more that they're on TV, the more money they're getting on their sponsors. If you look at their jerseys,
they're covered.
Yeah, Jordan Kamba is a guy who is a really good doubles. Well, he's just a really good player, singles and doubles. But he was on the broadcast last weekend. He was an outstanding. He's a big dude. He's like 6'3", 6'4". I don't want to guess his weight. He's big, big guy. And he's left-handed, so he's a great left-handed pitcher in high school and in college. He was also a great golfer. Well, Callaway found out that he was a great golfer and said, "Hey, would you mind wearing our hat?" So he wears a Callaway hat. Nobody makes anything in cornhole by Callaway, but Callaway is one of his sponsors because he's on TV. So that's where these guys can really make some money. So $25,000, yes, is a nice chunk of change for any of us, but they've got a chance to make more money by getting on TV and getting sponsorships.
Wow.
Yeah, it's taken off, man.
The great thing is, obviously no one in this business grows up aspiring to be the voice of cornhole, right? I mean, it's all the major
Speak
sports.
for yourself.
But no, what I was going to say.
I went to Kansas knowing I was going to broadcast cornhole. Are you kidding me?
How much you enjoy it is so evident. It's great.
It's really a lot of fun. I mean, it really. The thing is that I think the funny thing about me is that I'm actually not the biggest sports fan in the whole world. Like I'm not a sports nerd.
Yeah.
I do love baseball, but I can't sit here and try and debate with you the top 10 greatest NBA players of all time. Might be able to do it with baseball, but college football, I don't know many of the records, but what I do love is I love the spirit of competition.
Right.
And that's the great thing about what we do and about being a play-by-play guy. For me, it's absolutely perfect because I don't know everything about the Gamecocks. I for sure don't know everything about Clemson. I don't know everything about the SEC and the ACC or even the Big Ten where you and I grew up in Big Ten country. Mm-hmm. But I love going to the games. I don't care where it's at. I love the spirit of competition. I love going. And to watch these guys compete at the highest level of their sport, I don't care what you're doing, it's fun. And the fact that we all played in our backyards, and we all played in college, and we all play at tailgates makes it even better. I mean, it's just great to be there live.
I've told this story once, and I'll tell it again because you'll appreciate it. I have owned one cornhole set in my life. It was not in college. I lived down here, and there in my previous place of work, there was a previous partnership with the Carolina Panthers at the time. And so there was some swag that would come in and out of the office that, of course, in our office, we weren't going to get our hands on it. There was no chance of it actually being, spread the wealth throughout us. That's just not how that was going to work. But there was this cornhole set. that was in the conference room for weeks. And I asked repeatedly, can I have it? Can I have it? No, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. No. So one day I got tired of asking. So I just took it. Never heard another word. That was the only cornhole set I've ever had. I kept it for a long time until it basically rotted out. It's a Carolina Panthers cornhole set from the previous office.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You just throw it on your driveway and you just play whenever. I mean, well, not everyone, but pretty much all of us have done it at some point.
Yep.
But honestly, what really makes the sport is the personality. Well, the league is great. Again, all the guys that I've met with the league, Trey's great. But the players are they're so real. They all have real jobs. They all have real stories. They all have tragedies that they've been through. They all struggle, with anxiety, depression, health problems. I mean, all the things that all normal humans deal with, they deal with all those things. They're just real people with real jobs, real families. And it just so happens that they get thrown on ESPN on Saturdays. But that's great. I mean, that's what makes it great is that some dude from Kentucky, who's been playing cornhole for 10 years, all of a sudden is on ESPN. I mean, it truly could be any of us, and that's what makes it great.
Wasn't there a teenager who was on there a week or two ago?
Yeah, well, just last weekend, Justin Stranger. He's only 16 years old.
Right.
He literally just finished his sophomore year.
High school.
Of high school, yeah. Trey Birchfield, who won the doubles competition with Derek King, in our event in South Bend 2 weeks ago, he just finished his junior year. And then Matt Morton, who is the number 2 or number 3 player in the world right now. I think probably number 3 player in the world. Matt Morton, I saw him in Rock Hill. He won the singles event that weekend. He just graduated from high school. So what? And he's a stud. I mean, you should see his Twitter followers. I mean, he's got girls putting, getting in his DM box or whatever they call it nowadays. I don't know.
Sliding into the DM.
Sliding into the DM. Oh, he's the superstar. And he's a great. And that's the thing. He's a great kid, and they're also unassuming. But
he's not eligible to play in college because he's already taken money.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, he doesn't have to worry about that anyway. But I mean, for these guys, it's like being an Olympic athlete.
Yeah,
I mean, because we get Olympians who are 15, 16 years old nowadays, true. And they're on the front of Wheaties boxes and all that stuff. Yeah. So you can still make money. It's not illegal, and they're not going to play college anyway. I mean, they're not going to Alabama to play cornhole.
Yep.
So. No, so everything's. I mean, they love that. And matter of fact, there have been several who have told me. I asked. I mean, some of these guys were first team all conference, or first team all states, or honorable mention all state in another sport. And so I'm like, well, why the hell did you give that up? Like, because I can make money doing this.
Uh-huh.
They make money in their local tournaments. They make money obviously on the national stage. They can't make money, playing baseball in high school.
That's awesome.
It's amazing. I mean, it truly is amazing how it's taken off.
Jeff McCarriger is in for Jamie Bradford today. He's actually going to be in for Jamie tomorrow also, as Jamie is gone for the week for some family stuff out in St. Louis. So if you're listening on the Podbean app and you're wondering who in the world is that, it's Jeff McCarriger, and obviously I am Darren. If you're listening, thanks. If you are pulling it down on the podcast, we appreciate that as well. We're everywhere, every podcast site basically. And if you're watching online, we appreciate that too. We promised there would be some news. There's conflicting reports about A.J. Lawson, a guy on the South Carolina basketball team. The staff does expect him back. That's what I've heard. They do expect him back. Jamie and I have talked repeatedly that, look, he put his name in the draft, and it's more of an exploratory thing. Sooner or later, he will announce that he's coming back. There was a report today, a few of them, including John Rothstein, that said he has decided that he is coming back to school. That report doesn't look like it's correct, but they still do expect that sooner or later he is going to announce that he's coming back to school. So that's news from the.
Boy, this is really difficult decisions for the kids now, isn't it?
Well, but
because you don't know.
For him, it shouldn't be as difficult.
True. But no, I'm just talking a larger scale. It's a big decision they've got to make now, because is the money still going to be there? Are you going to get that money? Is it going to be guaranteed? Are you going to play?
And in the NBA, are you going to be drafted? And if you stick around in the draft and don't get drafted, you're not going back to school. You got to pull your name out.
Yep. Which I do like that they can do that. But
definitely,
man, it's a big decision right now.
Right.
More so than ever.
Yeah. The expectation, though, is that A.J. Lawson will, in fact, come back to South Carolina. Earlier today, College Football Hall of Fame announced the list of, not inductees, qualifiers? What would be the right way to put that? The Hall of Fame guys,
inductees?
Well, they're not inducted yet.
Oh.
A possibility. It's a list of guys who could get inducted this year. And there's definitely a word for that that's slipping my
Yeah,
mind.
nominees, right?
Nominees. There you go.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame nominees. That'll work. Of note, C.J. Spiller from Clemson. Champ Bailey from the Redskins and Georgia. Jack Del Rio played at Southern Cal. Didn't realize that. Linebacker at Southern Cal. James Laurinaitis, Ohio State.
Wow.
You remember him.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Julius Peppers, North Carolina. Obviously, Aaron Taylor, who's all over TV these days, went to Notre Dame. South Carolina. Former head coach Jim Carlin is also on that list. And two more. Do you know Rini Ingoglia? Have you ever worked with him?
No.
Rini does a lot with ESPN. He actually doubles. He is a Orlando police officer, now detective, and he is an analyst for football. In fact, I worked one of his first ever games, ESPN3, years and years ago, and he stuck with the network and I didn't, but he's good.
Yeah.
He's on the list as well. He is in the UMass Hall of Fame as a running back, and he is repeatedly on this list. One of these days, we got to get Rini into the College Football Hall of Fame. The other guy is Dan Morgan from Miami. Now, the list is like 150, 200 deep, but I'm pointing out Dan Morgan for a reason.
Okay.
When I was in college, so 98 to 02, I want to say it was 1999. I believe it was 99. That's the year that Penn State was pretty darn good, and they got up to top 5 in the country after a while and went down to Miami, and a guy named Shafi Fields, a receiver, brought in a pass in the rain and scored the winning touchdown, and we all went down and flooded Beaver Street, and everything. It was awesome. The point being from Dan Morgan, though, is he made some comment during the week about, he said, who is somebody on Penn State's team? So Penn State goes to Miami and beats him. So thousands of people flood the streets. Who's Dan Morgan?
Oh, that's good.
It was one of the great memories of Penn State.
That's good.
Some of my buddies would be able to remember much better than I about exactly like how that really came about. but it was something.
That's a good one.
It was along those lines. So as a student, the taunts that I remember weren't vulgar or anything like that. It was that. And
those are some of the best ones, though.
Oh,
the ones that aren't vulgar,
right?
You know.
So and then basketball,
they're just creative.
Yes. So Penn State is always generally not wonderful. We had a good year last year, and Penn State will be down in the Charleston Classic this upcoming season, and we've already lined up. We'll have Pat Chambers on, so that'll be fun.
Nice.
But when I was in school one year, they made the NIT, and we didn't even really go to many of the basketball games. Why would you go? There was no atmosphere. But they made the NIT, so we really started to go. Some of my buddies went regularly, and they were playing Princeton, and we got the nerds chant going. Just nerds, nerds, nerds. That was also fun. We beat Princeton.
I think you and I have had a chance to see a lot of heckling over the years.
Yes.
My one, greatest heckling story of a coach or of a player, really, of anybody, all time. There is no 1A or 1B, I should say, in my mind. So I was a TV reporter in Kansas for the ABC affiliate in Topeka. I was living in Lawrence, and so it was great. It was great going back because I could cover my alma mater, even though Kansas sucks in football. We were good a couple of times, and when Mark Mangino was there, we actually went to a bowl game. Mm-hmm. So there was a year where, and for those who don't know, Mark Mangino physically is a really, really big guy.
Yes.
I mean he's just always been a huge guy. But anyway, so he was actually having a lot of success at Kansas. And we go to Kansas State. So here I am as a reporter, and I'm getting to go and cover my alma mater against Kansas State. And so I'm on the sidelines with my camera, and it's just before the game's going to start, maybe 10 minutes before the game. So both teams are on the field. Mark Mangino has come out. I'm on the Kansas sideline. I've got the Kansas State student section behind me. And I start hearing all this giggling and almost like this kind of small
schoolgirl type
that's developing. And I look back, I see the entire Kansas State student section all assembling something. They all have like these pieces of white cloth. And I mean, it's the entire student section.
So it's like a sea of things going on.
Yeah. I mean, they're just busy. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Well, after a few minutes, so I'm also trying to get some establishing shots, all that kind of stuff for my job, and trying to figure out what's going on. So I get lost doing some establishing shots. All of a sudden they start chanting Mangino's name. I look back, all these little white pieces of cloth that they all brought assembled a huge pair of tighty whities. The largest pair of underwear that you would ever see, and on it said, "Hey Mangino, are these yours?"
That's great.
That was like the greatest heckling job I've ever seen out of a student section, and even they were laughing.
Did he laugh?
No, I'm not sure he laughs.
Oh, ever?
Like ever. Yeah, I'm not sure he laughs ever. But yes, there were many on the sidelines who looked up and were kind of smiling. That was one of the best. Hey Mangino, are these yours?
That's creative. I mean, when you can
very creative,
right? When you can do it creatively,
yeah.
And I mean, you don't need to be using language or anything. You just have some fun.
Well, how about this is a good one too. So at an Iowa game, this goes back only about 3 years ago because Fran McCaffrey was the head coach. So Illinois was good, and somehow the Illinois student section or some of the students at Illinois at Champaign decided, hey, let's see how many tickets we can get to the Iowa-Illinois game. And let's dress up as Iowa fans because Iowa wasn't very good. Illinois was. And see if we can get into their student section. Well, so they did. So the Illinois students assembled. And Darren, I mean, they got, I don't know. I don't want to say a few hundred because I think it was more than that. I don't want to give the impression that it was 10,000 students, but it might have been a few. It might have been 1,000 maybe. So these students all make their way from Champaign. They got their hands on tickets, and they're all wearing Iowa stuff as they come in. And just before tip-off, every single one of these students takes off their Iowa shirt, and they're all wearing Illinois crap. And oh my gosh, well, I know Fran personally, and oh man, were they upset? They were so angry. So that was a good one too.
That's well played.
But again, creative.
Well
they
played.
didn't do anything illegal. They bought the tickets. The students were able to do whatever they want with their tickets. They didn't realize they were, when they're selling their tickets, who they're selling them to. But yeah, that was a bad moment. All of a sudden, whoosh, off come the Iowa shirts, and there you got several hundred, maybe 1,000 Illinois student sections, or students in the Iowa student section. It was not a good day for Iowa basketball.
First time we've talked Iowa basketball on this show.
No one else is talking about Iowa basketball.
We'll talk. We'll have Gene Sapikoff coming up around this time out. He will talk to us a little bit about golf. I know the plans were to go down to the Heritage. He's put out 2 recent columns, the top 10 defensive linemen in both the history of Clemson and South Carolina. I'm sure he's got other stuff coming up down the pike as well. So Gene Sapikoff coming your way as we finish up a Tuesday edition of JB and Goldwater.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks, not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
What's up, guys? It's JB. Obviously, things have been kind of crazy with the coronavirus taking over our lives. We're stuck inside with family, finding ways to be creative and probably tapping the liquor cabinet a little bit. If you don't have Patrick Davis's Whiskey Jam in yours, put on your mask and gloves and head to Bottles or Burris liquor stores here in Charleston. The Blackberry is my personal favorite on the rocks, but the original Whiskey Jam is Patrick's. So either way, you're winning with Whiskey Jam. WhiskeyJam.com, PatrickDavis.com.
One of these drinks is gonna cloud my memory.
Honey Baked Ham in Somerville and in Mount Pleasant is your home for catering and lunch. Honey Baked Somerville, owned by former Gamecock right-hander Mike Cisco, is just off the interstate and they are ready to cater to your next business or family meal. Plus, drop in for an incredible sandwiches daily for lunch. The Mount Pleasant location is at the foot of the Ravenel Bridge and always ready to serve and cater to your next meals as well. Plus, delivery is available. Honeybake.com to find your menu today.
As businesses start to open up around South Carolina, we have Ryan Nelson back in here to tell us about Dog and Duck Family Pubs, the 3 locations, and some new hours going on. What's up?
That's right. We now offer indoor dining and patio seating outside. The new hours are Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., and then Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. now. Slowly getting back into the normal routine, or so what we think, and we hope everybody comes out and supports local businesses like Dog and Duck.
And you still have family special meals as well?
That's right. Always the family style meals, and you can always get curbside pickup or carry out if you're not ready to venture outside yet. We're here.
The JB and Goldwater Show.
That's us. Because we play this.
And there are these guys in a band on stage bouncing on trampolines, and one of them is playing a vacuum cleaner on his face. And it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. This band was going for it as hard as they could. I've never seen anything like it. And I said to the bartender, I was like, who is this band? Oh, this is a band from New Hampshire called Fish.
Oh, good times. That was Edwin McCain telling that story about a time he was actually at a bar in the Charleston area. And then according to Richard Todd, who's a Charleston staple, now he's on 105.5, he said he's a big Fish guy as well. He said they still do that gig. They still play vacuum cleaners on their face at some select concerts.
I've seen them. I saw them one time. They are so good. I mean, they seriously are.
They are.
They if you're not like, I'm not sure that type of music is real popular anymore because in this era and this age of short attention span. I mean, you've got they kind of Dave Matthews Band it for a while. They'll just jam. I mean, they'll play the same song for 23 minutes, but they're awesome.
Well, Gene Sapikoff never goes out of style. He is always in style, and he joins us now. Gene, where are you right now?
Well, right now I'm in my Mount Pleasant office, which is to say my bedroom on Rifle Range Road. But I do have an interesting Fish story. Literally, I once witnessed a Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl Auburn-Clemson crowd, the game ending and the crowd descending into the streets of Atlanta at exactly the time across the street at Phillips Arena, a Fish crowd was let out into the streets of Atlanta, and the cultural contrast could not have been much more interesting there.
Were there any good interactions on the street?
There were some tremendous interactions, especially at the MARTA stop, of people just just staring and looking at each other's clothing as if each other had arrived from space, pretty much. I mean, it was fascinating.
Gene Sapikoff's with us. At Sapikoff is where you can find him on Twitter. He's also with the Post and Courier. You told us last week that you were hoping to go down and cover the RBC Heritage. Is that happening? How much media is heading down there?
Yeah, it's happening, and I'm on my way to the store now to get my hazmat suit because they have very strict guidelines about what sort of personal protective gear you will be wearing, and I'll be there for 5 days, so it's really interesting. Like, for instance, there's not going to be any media concessions, which is fine, except a grab-and-go sandwich, but you must not eat it at a table with others. You must go to your personal workspace, which will be at least 8 feet from any other personal workspace, and stay there until you're finished with your sandwich. But otherwise, I'm looking forward to a great field at Harbortown. They've got pretty much everybody but Tiger and Phil, and for them, as you know, Jeff and Darren, that's their best field in years and years.
There was I don't know if a rumor is the right way to put it, but Tiger's boat was at St. Simon Island. Maybe it even still is.
Yeah.
Was it close? Did he come close to committing to this tournament?
I don't know. I know that the deadline was 5 o'clock last Friday night, and that right up until 4:59, they kind of had their fingers crossed. But yeah, I talked to somebody earlier Friday, and they said they just didn't think it was going to happen. I'm kind of surprised because I thought Tiger would want to get some work in since he didn't go to Colonial last week, but he knows what he's doing, and he's trying to, stay healthy. And if he can work his game out down in Florida, it's all about preparing for the majors, which, as you know, there's only 3 this year, and they're all somewhat bunched together in the fall. So, August, September, and November with the Masters. So it'll be interesting to see how this golf season plays out.
Hey, Gene, it is great to hear your voice, and I would be watching you, but it's too much of a delay on my computer. But great to hear you, bud.
Well, he's not on Skype anyway. We're just phoning him.
Okay, good. Well, like I said, great to hear your voice.
Good to hear you too, Jeff.
Hey, yeah, I was gasping at the first comment that you made about having to buy the hazmat suit, and because of all the stringent regulations and guidelines that they're going to be following, this is an outdoor tournament, correct?
It is. It's an outdoor tournament. But,
have you been to
really only?
Have you been to an airport lately?
not much media is allowed. I know for sure, and it's going to be interesting. But NASCAR's made a go of it here, and now with PGA, and I know a lot of media relations people and sports information people from all the other sports are keeping a close eye on how this works with managing the media. And but hey, it should look good on TV because Harbor Town always does.
The reason I'm being facetious about that, have you been to an airport? Have you had to travel at all in the last month?
I have not been to an airport. I've purposely avoided airports. And how is that going?
Well, good for you. Terrible. In a word, terrible. And so the reason I was gasping is because here you are, and here, the Heritage is having to jump through all these hoops to make sure they can get their event on, and all the guidelines and CDC regulations and rules that you guys are going to have to follow. But yet, at the Charlotte airport, and I don't mean to just call out Charlotte, but I am right now, on Sunday, Gene, it's packed. It's absolutely freaking packed, shoulder to shoulder, people standing at the gate. There are a few restaurants that are open, but not many. So that forces people to be literally sitting on on the walkways up against the wall, which can't be healthy. So I mean, I'm just so blown away by the double standard that our society is having to go through right now, that you're having to follow all these hoops, and all these regulations to go to your event, but yet the airports and the airlines are getting a total free pass on this. Unbelievable. I just can't believe that you just said that to me.
That's crazy, and I'm glad you shared that because I will be driving anywhere I possibly can over the next several months.
Oh, I've been doing everything possible. I travel with Purell wipes and with sanitizer, and I'm wearing a mask. But did I send you the picture from the airport?
No. But
I don't know if we can post the picture. You should see that. You should see the scene from the airport, and not only that, Gene, but I would say only maybe 35 or 40% of the people in this picture that I took were even wearing their mask. It's unfreaking believable what's going on in airports right now, and no one is talking about it. So the fact that you have to follow the letter of the law at an outside event just absolutely just rubs me the wrong way. It's terrible.
Well, it's a zany world out there for all kinds of reasons, and wow. I know most of the golfers that'll be come on private jets. I suppose maybe some of the lesser guys have to come through airports, but that's interesting to hear that.
Oh, it's amazing. So what'd you think about the golfers being mic'd?
I really like that,
yeah,
and if that comes from the Brady, Manning, Phil, Tiger exhibition match, that is a positive thing. I've always liked athletes mic'd in live action. I've just always thought that was cool ever since I was a kid. Of course, most of it was on NFL films after it happened, but live, I just think it's really cool. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Oh, I've been a proponent from absolutely day one. I mean, the All-Star game, baseball, last year when I guess it was Buck. I think Fox had it. They're able to talk with guys while they're in the outfield. They're talking to guys while they're at the
Bryce
plate.
Harper and that
yes,
was fun.
It's fantastic stuff. And with golf, more guys need to wear that mic. I mean, it was disappointing that most chose not to because, look, if you play it the right way, it's a great marketing tool for you, the individual golfer, to let me, the fan, into your world. I mean, and then you can cover it and write about it. And it really helps the athlete if they can see that.
No doubt about it. I think if they mic'd most of the players, and especially, as you get on Sunday at majors, I think it could absolutely have a spike in ratings eventually.
Yeah, no doubt. Gene Sapakoff's with us. If you're only listening and not watching, he is obviously the veteran sports editor, college. What is your exact title at the Post and Courier?
I guess I'm a sports columnist and college sports editor. That is my title. That's what it says in the paycheck, which so far none of them have bounced, so that works out.
Yeah, that's also good. But you cover, obviously tons of things as a columnist, and we talk baseball all the time. Jeff and I talked at the very beginning of this show about where baseball stands right now. I watched the Return to Sports episode, whatever feature on ESPN last night. Rob Manfred, I thought, came off horribly. And then this morning, Jeff Passan on ESPN on Get Up said, if anything, maybe what he said actually gets them closer to playing. I think we ask you this every week. What's your feeling now on baseball?
I think there's a lot of grandstanding on both sides, but I think the players are in a good place right now, and that the owners, and Manfred represents the owners, is going to have to cave here because, as John Heyman so wonderfully explained, if they got into a grievance hearing or something, they may have to open up their books, and they don't want to do that.
Yes.
So I really think that in the next few days, or at least in the next week, they are going to come together, and it's going to mostly benefit what the players have been wanting, and we'll get going with some kind of season that starts in July.
Well, here's the big question with this, Gene, and I don't know if you have any information that we don't have or that we haven't been able to see so far, but the biggest question mark is, we all know that they agreed back in March to pay the players a prorated salary. So however many games, that's what they're going to get paid. But the big sticking point, the answer I have not been able to find is, in that contract, was there or was there not a stipulation that it could be renegotiated if there were no fans in attendance? This seems to be the simplest
of Sports
question.
Illustrated explains it fairly well to say that they talked about economic feasibility in vague sense, but did not specifically address no fans, but that the owners are claiming that that's what they meant about economic feasibility and things like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it'll be tough to see, but, it's a fight over money, but when you really get down to it, too, and I hope the owners realize this, the players are the ones that are taking some risk, either in operating within some kind of a bubble or putting their, health at risk with the virus out there. Meanwhile, the owners aren't really doing that, and I think the public would sympathize in this case with the players, I think. Not 100%, obviously, but I personally tilt to the players in this current argument, mostly because the owners just have a 100-plus year history of greed.
Did you watch the Long Gone Summer on Sunday night?
I did not see that. Was that a good show?
I loved it. There was very, very little talk about actually performance-enhancing drugs. Yeah. Very little. But we had Dimitri Young on yesterday, whose nephew, I think Delman's his nephew, played here. And Dimitri played in the bigs for 13 years, and
they're brothers. Yeah, they're brothers.
Are they brothers?
Delman played for the Riverducks. Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw Delman in the minors also.
Yeah, well, luckily I didn't bring Delman up and ask if it's his nephew, because then I would have been wrong.
Yeah.
But anyway, he said it accurately depicted what went on in '98 from the players' side. In fact, I didn't even realize in '97 he was a rookie. Dimitri was, when McGuire was traded over to the Cardinals. So he had to hit behind McGuire in batting practice, and said he hated it every single day. There's McGuire hitting balls to the moon, and Dimitri could hit. But But the big point was, when you think back to that time, and Dimitri, coming from the players' side, was saying, look, there were rumblings. Some people were doing stuff, some people weren't. Nobody really cared. Not then, because baseball wasn't actively frowning upon using any type of performance-enhancing drugs. What are your memories, though, of, if you didn't see the show? I mean, just what are your memories of '98 and that chase?
Well, it really helped baseball obviously bounce back, and it was exciting, but there were definitely rumors going on during that season and thoughts that was going to be a problem. And I really thought then that the media, especially the hardcore baseball writers, should have been more aggressive in trying to report what was going on. Some did, most didn't, and the ignoring it ended up coming back to bite the sport in a big way. So, yeah, it was fun while it lasted, but boy, did it come crashing down soon after. But those months when Sosa and McGuire were going at it, and particularly those highlight moments of him actually breaking the record in that game in St. Louis and so forth, that was pretty darn exciting. There's no doubt about it.
That was such the dirty little secret that everyone knew, but no one wanted to talk about it. You were absolutely right, because I was in baseball for 10 years at the minor league level, and there were minor league players, many of whom that I knew were taking steroids, and who opened up to me about it because they knew, Gene, that to them the reward outweighed the risk. They said, listen, I've got a chance if I take this to get, all I got to do is get one contract, and I've got my family set up. So keep in mind, this is back in the 90s, early 2000s, when it wasn't even nearly as stringent as it is now. but the risk versus reward was just totally in their favor. So those players didn't want to say anything because they wanted that chance to get that one contract. The major league people didn't want to say anything because obviously the ratings are huge and they're packing out the places everywhere that Sosa and McGuire go, so they didn't want to say anything. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I know their side, but I'm with you. I don't know why the media didn't say anything. Is it just because of it wasn't quite the era that we're in now of social media?
There's a couple things there. One, I think there was just hard to grasp how many players and who was doing it. And it was kind of the nod and the wink that, yeah, this guy and that guy's doing it, but that if we go after this guy, it's not unfair. It's too unfair to these other guys. So unless you have something on the entire, sport, that you really don't want to target an individual player. And even then, I don't think it was as widely known that, hey, pitchers are doing this stuff too. I can distinctly remember it would have been unfathomable to think that many pitchers are also using steroids and benefiting from them. It was thought to be just the sluggers, really, or just the guy that was the second baseman that always was hitting 17, 18 homers and all of a sudden has a 50 home run year. That kind of thing stuck out, but I don't think people generally thought it was as widespread as it was.
Gene Sapikoff is with us of the Post and Courier. I want to just pivot here back to golf, and we'll let you go. What's the forecast? Is it supposed to be nice down there at Hilton Head?
Yeah, it's supposed to be nice, no rain, a little warm in the weekend, but that's what you expect for this time of year in South Carolina, so it should be good. And, hey, the important thing for this tournament and fans out there is that we'll look good on TV.
Yeah, no, it absolutely will look beautiful on TV. Any conversations with players leading up to your coverage down there about their feeling, whether it's from last week or coming down and playing this week?
I have a tremendous amount of press conferences lined up tomorrow. I know Rory's going to be available, and he's only played there once, I believe, and just some of the guys that they have, like Rahm and Koepka and players that you just don't usually see at Harbor Town, is just going to be a blast. So it'll be interesting to see what they think of the course and just sort of what sort of playing shape they're in, even after last week at the Colonial, which some very good golf, even coming down the stretch. So I'm excited about it, just, from the golf fan perspective, let alone the circusy, fanless situation that they have going on.
Hey, Gene, real quick, I don't mean to throw this at you out of right field, but
he can handle it.
But because I get this question when I'm on the road all the time, what do you think are the chances and the percentages of seeing college football? And do you think they're going to make these guys sign waivers? Like what are they doing right now in the SEC or in the ACC, really, to guarantee that these guys can get on the field?
Yeah, our reporters checked yesterday at South Carolina and Clemson in light of the Ohio State report. They had been asked to sign waivers, and there's not right now that kind of thing in effect at South Carolina and Clemson as the players gather for quote-unquote voluntary workouts. I think there will be some kind of season. I don't think it's going to be a normal season, either at the start or at the end, but I think we're tilting towards some kind of season, and these spikes in some of these states will be interesting to monitor, but that's why I think the voluntary workouts that bleed into non-contact drills, that bleed into contact drills, will allow college football to sort of see where they're going with this and if they can continue.
Wow, so fluid.
Yeah.
Unreal.
It's daily isn't even the right way to put it. Like hourly, it's changing.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're so right. You just don't know what's going on. What's really interesting is literally 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were talking about the possibility, and Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, even came out and said, we might play even if some other conferences don't, thinking they're really having COVID problems up in New England and New York and the Midwest. Well, what if it turned out to be the reverse, where in the Midwest and in New England it's fine, and that there's just roaring tsunami comeback of COVID in the South, and the SEC is the one that has to sit on the sidelines.
Which I could, just from my travels, just going up to the Northeast this weekend. That's something I worry about, because here in Charleston, everything's back to normal. We go out to eat, we're going into restaurants, there's traffic. All the stores have been open up. Fewer people are wearing masks. Mm-hmm. You go up to the Northeast. I was up in Delaware. We were in Philadelphia, and then we were in Wilmington. And you can't even get into a restaurant unless you're wearing a mask. So you have to stand in line outside wearing a mask They actually have an attendant out there having you wear a mask outside because you're in a gathering outside waiting with people. You have to wear the mask all the way into your table. Once you are seated, you're allowed to take off the mask. But if you go to the restroom or if you leave, if you are moving around the restaurant at all, you have to have that mask on. Otherwise, you get kicked out. I mean, it's amazing in all the places.
These stats lately in this last week in, Arizona, Florida, South Carolina, and particularly look at the counties, Greenville, Richland, and, Lexington are pretty sobering.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a real. I mean, I don't think it's any coincidence that we have been traveling to states that have had more or less, stringent policies, like Arizona and like Texas, and we started out here in South Carolina at Rock Hill.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, Gene. I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe this is going to come back to bite us in the South. Who knows?
Yeah, I hope not. And
too.
hopefully we can learn from this and make some corrections, because I think live entertainment, and not just sports, music too, would be really good for the soul of the American people right now.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Well, Gene, with that, a positive thought, being good for the soul, we'll let you go. Also good for the soul, getting outside and watching live golf. So we'll be following your coverage. What else is coming up this weekend? I'd imagine you're swamped. Everything is going to be RBC Heritage focused.
That's pretty much it. That's what we got, but always good coverage from our Clemson and South Carolina reporters, and Jeff Hartzell with a great story today about a group of Citadel alums wanting to change the name of Johnson Haygood Stadium. So at postandcourier.com, we just got your one-stop shop for sports shopping in South Carolina.
Awesome. Actually, I think Frankie Mansfield of the Post and Courier Moultrie News will be in here on Friday, so we'll feature even more of that. Yeah, he's a good dude. Well, we'll let you go, Gene, and have fun down there in Hilton Head. Appreciate your time as always.
Thanks, guys.
Talk to you soon.
Bye, Gene.
Gene Sapikoff of the Charleston Post and Courier. All right, before we end this show, we do have to do one thing because Jamie has dubbed it year in and year out. Year in and year. How long have I been doing the show? Like 8 weeks?
Week in and week out.
Day in, day out. The favorite segment of the day, everybody's favorite segment of the day is how he dubs it. And it's what day is today, the National Days calendar. Normally there's like 7 days.
I'm just happy that I know today's Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's a good start.
Well, I mean, especially with this pandemic thing, you wake up. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing again today. Is it Saturday or Wednesday?
Yeah.
I don't know. Today, there's only one day. Tomorrow, you're in for it. Tomorrow, we got a long list I'm going to throw at you. Today, though, is National Fudge Day.
My dad makes the greatest fudge I've ever had in my life.
Really?
Makes it every Christmas. Yeah. And he's now taught the kids that he can pass it on down to the generations.
So you can now make it.
I actually haven't.
You just said he's taught the kids.
Well, no, sorry.
Oh, your kids. Okay.
Yeah, the grandkids. Yeah, he didn't teach any of us kids, but now he's passed it on to the grandkids. But he makes the best fudge. So
how about that?
Kudos to my dad on National Fudge Day.
There you go. Have you ever? You've seen it being made. There is a. Growing up, I spent a lot of time, and I guess now occasionally still do. My mom lives down there, Sarasota, Florida. There is something in Sarasota called St. Armand's Circle. And you've been down to spring training many times. I don't know if you've been to Sarasota or not.
I've actually I don't think I've covered a game in Sarasota.
Okay. Well, plenty of teams
yes,
down
I've been
there.
Around Florida.
The Orioles.
St. Lucie was because it was with the Mets. So
yeah.
St.
Okay.
Lucie. And then Tampa with the Yankees. But
the Orioles are down there now. There's a bunch. Anyway, in St. Armand's Circle is this candy fudge shop called Kilwin's. And you can, as a kid, I'll never forget, like every Christmas when we go down there for vacation, watching them make fudge in the window. I mean, it's quite the process.
It's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they put it on the slab. And
and whatever the thing's called, that's there's a big handle on it, and then it's flat and
pulling
long.
it and pushing it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's very satisfying to watch.
It is, and then when you eat it, it is also quite satisfying.
It is very satisfying.
Okay,
satisfying to the mouth, and not so much to the rest of the body. But yes.
Well, I mean, what is these days?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, let's see. So, Jeff, coming up tomorrow, we'll have JC Sherbert on the show. We weekly check in with JC of thebigspur.com. That's the 247 sports site for South Carolina. JC owns it. I believe he's still in Chicago because he's been stuck in Chicago ever since this pandemic hit and hasn't been able to leave.
Well, if he wants to get on a flight with 165 other people, shoulder to shoulder, he can do it.
He probably could. He's been raising some turtles, and so we'll get an update on those turtles. He'll give us an AJ Lawson update if we don't hear one come out today. So we'll talk South Carolina. We'll also talk, who knows? If you've listened to us with JC before, literally, we could go in any direction. So that'll be fun. So we'll have him tomorrow, and I don't know what else we're going to have tomorrow, but I do know that Jeff will be back in with us, and I certainly do appreciate that. Thanks to Adam Amin for joining the program today. If you missed that, check it out. The video stream archives are going to be up in like 2 seconds, or the podcast, and that's available everywhere. Also at 1:30, if you just missed our conversation, that was Gene Sapikoff of the Post and Courier, so we appreciate his time as well. Tuesday is done. Tomorrow might be Tuesday again. Who knows? But the JB and Goldwater Show will be back at noon on the Podbean app and live streaming on all of the social media platforms. So for Jeff McCarriger, the international voice of cornhole.
Oh, international now. Wow.
Huge. You didn't know how big you are.
I got a promotion just sitting here for the last 2 hours.
I'm Darren Goldwater. Both of us. We will talk to you next week.